Hi, my name is Beverly Vanover. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel for Dragonfly Counseling and Coaching. I hope your day is as you wish it to be and that you're taking steps to care for yourself in loving and kind ways. I wanted to take this opportunity to share some compilation of thoughts that I may have shared before. I hope it's helpful. It's becoming apparent to me as I continue to help people with issues that bring them to counseling that there are at least three areas to concentrate upon when developing more resilience to symptoms of depression, anger, and anxiety. The first area is related to cognition. Cognition has to do with our thoughts and beliefs and manifests in words we say to ourselves. So many times we aren't even aware of our self talk, yet, self talk has a powerful influence on our emotions and behaviors. In the book I recommend so often to my clients, SOS for Emotions by Dr. Lynn Clark, we learned about the ABCs of emotions. Think of this as a math equation: A plus B equals C. When we start defining the variables, we think of A as activating event. Life is a series of activating events, really. Things happen. Life is happening, and we are reacting to events constantly. We respond to what goes on around us, everything that goes on in our natural environment, any place we are at any given moment. Coping with the emotions and behaviors that get triggered by our thoughts and beliefs is what we're doing. This variable A reminds us of, or reminds me of, quoting the Serenity poem written by Reinhold Niebuhr. It goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are several more stanzas in this poem. You can find it on the internet if you Google it. I figure that in relation to variable A in the ABCs of emotion, that if we have things that happen to us, an example, activating events, if we've got the ability to change the event from one thing to another, we can and do that, and often do so without giving it much thought. It's the things we cannot control, therefore cannot change, that give us trouble. The trouble we have can be illustrated in this ABCs of emotions equation as we define the variable C as consequences. The outcome or consequence in this model is both behavioral and emotional. Behavior and emotions are related and cannot be present, really, one cannot be present without the other. Think about sadness, for example. Sadness, when someone's sad, there's predictable behavior that is matched with sadness. We can tell from their behavior if they're sad. They move slowly, they lower their head, or they cry. If someone's angry, we can usually tell this too from behavior. Behaviors don't have to be expressed congruently, however, because some people will smile when they're angry. The behavior of smiling doesn't actually match up or logically fit with the emotion of anger, yet the two are connected. The behavior and the emotion are connected, and that's the point of illustrating this. So, if we agree that events trigger emotions and behaviors, in other words, A leads to C, then we may consider this question: if C or outcome of consequences of behaviors and emotions are not helpful to us or are causing us life problems or issues because of the intensity, and we can't do much about A events because life just happens, and if we can change things, we will. Think of the Serenity poem. Then the only variable we have left to change to get a different outcome in C will be the variable B. B in the ABCs of emotions equation stands for beliefs and also involves self-talk and thoughts. In the SOS for Emotions book, we learn about how words that make up our self-talk, that the author refers to as hot links, and how words such as should, must, have to, always, never are connecting thoughts such as he, she, must, they must or have to, I will always or never, the world must, etc. And often even with statements like, they often end with statements like, I can't stand it, I have to change it. These are self statements. What we can do to soften these self-statements is change these hot link words to preferences and wishes, and back that up with a statement that we can stand it. The SOS book suggests an adjustment in our cognition from absolute black and white thinking to something softer, such as I wish, prefer, that things were not the way they are, but they are the way they are. Acceptance from the Serenity Prayer. You can go back and review how we have the wisdom to accept things. And I can stand it. That's what we want to tell ourselves. This reframe can soften our emotions, and our behavior can become milder and even more manageable. Cognition or thinking is taken for granted and happens really fast. But if we can slow things down, we can learn to manage our thinking. This is referred to as metacognition, or thinking about thinking. It really can be considered a higher level of thinking, and its practice can help us manage our minds before our minds manage us. Thus, the rest of the title of the SOS book, Managing Anger, Anxiety, and Depression, is called SOS for Emotions, Managing Anger, Anxiety, and Depression. It's by Dr. Lynn Clark. As I said earlier in this video, there are at least 3 areas we can concentrate on making improvements to so we can respond with more resilience and gain the ability to cope with depression, anxiety, and anger more effectively. The second area has to do with mindfulness approach, where learning how to increase the space between stimulus and response is necessary. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is the power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." In the book entitled Forward-Facing Trauma Therapy by J. Eric Gentry, PhD, the author discusses the concept of the polyvagal theory. It sounds complicated, but I'll try to explain it as the idea that we can learn to calm ourselves and dial back our emotional and behavioral responses when it's beneficial to ourselves and our environment to do so. We need some time and extra space to actually change our variable B in the ABCs of Emotions model. Things happen so fast between A and C that we just have to slow things down to address B. That space between stimulus A and response, or C. We have the opportunity to create the change that promotes our emotional growth and behavioral freedom. The polyvagal theory was introduced in 1994 by Dr. Stephen Porges, director of the Brain Body Center at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And the author that I mentioned, J. Eric Gentry, of Forward-Facing Trauma Therapy, utilizes this theory to describe how we can understand our autonomic nervous system. Our autonomic nervous system governs 2 nervous system responses. One is called sympathetic nervous system, and the other is called parasympathetic nervous system. Very simply, the sympathetic nervous system is what is triggered when we respond instinctively to some sort of threat to our physical or emotional well-being or safety. We get into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn is people-pleasing. Not everybody's heard of fawn. These are an automatic response in order for survival, this trauma response system. We can learn, according to Gentry and others, to manage our relaxation response, which is governed by our parasympathetic nervous system. We intelligent human beings have the capacity to self-regulate on a conscious level according to the polyvagal theory. Deliberate activities such as deep breathing and relaxation are what we can do in that space between stimulus and response in order to be able to consciously address our faulty cognitions or beliefs and self-talk so we can change the outcome in our behaviors and emotions and grow and experience freedom from the effects of anger, anxiety, and depression. The third area of concentration for resilience has to do with self-acceptance. As I often say these days, the mind is where the misery is. I think that's because the mind has been created for us to be able to discern and judge in order to protect us. Yet, it can be so in control that it tends to judge us in black or white, right and wrong ways, which end up combining with ways we may have been judged by others and even society and expectations from outside of ourselves. Okay? Self acceptance is at the core of self esteem. One main theme that stood out for me from listening to this series, and I found it from Sounds True series called The Self Acceptance Project, is that our mind is only trying to help us, and its mission is strong and consistent and unwavering, and is something we can depend on to continue working exactly as it's been designed to work from our creation. As we take the time in the space between stimulus and response to address our mind, we ought to also love it as it was created, yet gently use our higher level of consciousness or metacognitive abilities to assure our discerning and necessarily judgmental minds that our adult and assertive selves have things under control. In closing, I offer these three resources to you again. SOS for Emotions by Dr. Lynn Clark, Forward Facing Trauma Therapy by J. Eric Gentry, PhD, and the Self Acceptance Project series by SoundsTrue.com as resources to utilize to gain and master more resilience in the areas of cognition, which is thinking. Okay, mindfulness or relaxation and slowing things down is what we need to do. And finally, recognizing the importance of self acceptance. I believe concentrating on incorporating these ideas into your lives will result in developing more resilience to symptoms of depression, anger, anxiety. And I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. I appreciate you listening to this video and